I'm doing a video series where I reflect on the early parts of my career and then look at how I would handle it differently now that I have the experience and the wisdom. Today's story is about a time when I'd handed a piece of work over to a developer, I'd raised an issue, and sometime after they came and found me in someone else's office, burst through the door and accused me that what I had done was totally awful and that it completely inconvenienced them, and basically they made me look really incompetent at my job. Now, in this situation, we had someone coming in, they'd been triggered, their chimp brain was going wild, they didn't know how to handle that, they just wanted to pummel that into me, like they had that anger. They found me, they offloaded. I have two responses. I can run, go quiet, apologize, whatever, or I can fight. In this scenario, I actually got triggered, my ego rose to match theirs, my response was basically boiling down a very trivial, basic solution that I would go to their computer and do for them, which was completely demeaning their level of expertise down to they can't even do a basic thing, right? That is very rare that you can be that quick-witted, but at the same time, it's also not very helpful. Here's how I would handle that now. Now, bit of a disclaimer, when you have a confrontation, it's really hard to control yourself. This is why you need to have a really robust kind of mindset. You've got to really trust yourself. You've got to put the work in. If I had that, this is how I'd handle it. They'd come in, they'd burst, they'd be anger, they'd be, frustrated. I could use a pattern interrupt. I would say, hey, are you okay? Everything all right? Changing it away from the work to them, to caring about them. I could maybe try and encourage to change location, to give them time to reset. So I could say, let's go to your office and discuss this, or let's go to grab a coffee and discuss this. That would be enough to get them down. They'd probably, hopefully, feel that they were being a bit dramatic. But the reality is what's happened here is that they are really saying more about themselves rather than about me and my skills and things like that. And sure, we can make mistakes, but if someone pummels all their frustration in, that's on them. And the problem with this is if you're a junior developer, if you're new, it can trigger things like imposter syndrome, it can trigger anxiety, it can make you feel like you're judging yourself, and that's unfair, right? You need to have the tools so you can separate that from how you judge yourself. I'm very fortunate that I didn't. Reality is I didn't have the respect of this developer in the first place. Had it been someone who I did respect, that would be much harder to deal with. So we have that to play in my advantage. So what they said didn't trigger me. But ultimately, what's happened here is they're probably having a bad day. They probably had, who knows, bad news at home. They probably had a whole frustrating morning of things going wrong, and you were just the straw that broke the camel's back. You were the thing that pushed them over the edge and they offloaded onto you. And if you can recognize that, it stops you taking full responsibility of that and blowing it out of proportion. Use the pattern interrupts to try and help them get back to it. And if you have an opportunity, you could just say, hey, the way you handled that, how do you think that made me feel? Is that your intention? Did you intend to make me feel like I'm incompetent? If so, let's take that issue to our manager, because that's not the right way we do work here. But if it's not your intention, then I want you to know that it made me feel insecure and hurt, right? You could really kind of reframe it that actually there are other human beings in this world and that the world doesn't evolve around them. But usually I would try and give them the benefit of the doubt, let them have their storm in their teacup, not take it personally, and try to just calmly bring them back round to feeling normal again. You can't solve other people's problems. It's not your responsibility to take that on. If you have a chance to, be a friend to someone, great. But, people, and this is going to be common, People are going to be triggered, their chimp brain is going to flare up and they'll take it out on you, and that will have consequences on you. And it's important to remember that what other people do and what other people say are their responsibility. How you feel and what actions you do from that is yours. And if you decide to not take it personally, that's great.